Okay, I'll call the meeting of the Davenport Housing Commission together for Monday, excuse me, May 20th. Attendance, Tori is here. I see you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
There you go.
Gary?
Here.
And Joyce.
Here.
Great. We have 4 present, so we have a quorum. Our first order of business is the secretary's report for our meeting last month. Just asking if anyone has any corrections or questions. And if not, I'll ask for a motion to approve these.
I motion to approve the April meeting minutes,
Second.
financial report, and utilization report.
Second.
No, we can't do utilization yet.
sorry.
We're not there yet.
Just so you just want the meeting minutes. There you go.
Okay,
I approve.
that's fine. I heard a motion and a second to approve the April meeting minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we'll go on to the April financial reports. And again, ask if there's any corrections or questions. And Malia, I say we have some red ink. Well, I don't know if that's just a new,
We do have some red ink because, Commissioner, because we are getting close to the end of the year and we are running close to being over budget in some areas.
okay.
That's correct. So some areas, yeah, I mean, it's already, but there are some areas that, and as I mentioned last month, we have spent over what we expected to spend in housing assistance payments for this year because we did have a second year of implementing the 120% payment standard, which is through December 31st of this year. And so that has created a significant increase in what we're spending per month. But I have checked with our finance department and they have extended us to be covered up to an extra $1 million. So we should be fine through the end of this fiscal year.
Okay. Well, let me just ask, has the upcoming fiscal year, have you asked for, and I'll admit I haven't looked at it, for the budget for this office for the upcoming fiscal year, and if you asked for more and if they've had any.
I've requested additional funds, again, based off our current utilization and what we project to be spending in the next year. I've requested additional funding. I've requested that we go up to 4.5 million for next fiscal year, specifically for housing assistance payments and utility reimbursements, so.
Okay.
But you haven't heard anything yet on that then?
No, I can check in with Bruce and ask, and how I can have an update provided to you.
I mean, I don't mean to be arguing, but hasn't the upcoming fiscal year has already been?
Are we talking about FY '25 or the current year FY '24?
The next one.
Oh, FY
Yeah,
'25,
I'm sorry.
yes.
If I wasn't specific before. Yes, 25.
Yes. So in the FY '25 budget, I requested 4.5 million, which is significantly high. I think last year we asked 4.3 million. So a little bit more to carry us over, so we don't run into the deficit.
And that was approved?
I believe so. I haven't checked with this budget to see if it isn't, but I can check with Bruce. As far as I know, it should have been, but I haven't heard any different. And we haven't hit the new fiscal year yet, so.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do you know, maybe Bruce would be the better one to ask since he goes to most of the meetings, along with Joyce. About, has there been any questions or pushback at all about our budget, this budget?
No, as far as I know, no. They just want, so I'm sure the city wants to know what we're projected to be spending, and I have to be able to justify it based off of our utilization, which is what we'll talk about today. Kelly and myself will talk about our current utilization and how we issue vouchers, and later on during the year in one of our educational sessions, I will talk about projecting and forecasting dollars spent, because it's a very complex, complicated formula to how we anticipate funding, how funding will be utilized. And then, of course, you know, there have been some changes in our administrative plan as well. So if I spoke too much in detail about the cost per unit, it would be very, one, it would take away from the things that we're talking about today, but it may confuse you. So if we...
I don't think you have to be worried about confusing people. You just need to explain things.
Well, if you're asking me how I project what we're going to spend next year, it's based off historical information. And that's about the best response I can give.
Okay.
Okay.
Were you supposed to get like new software or something, or what? Why? I guess, you know, just looking at money you haven't spent, software, it shows quite a big budget, but we didn't have to spend it, or what?
Yeah, so we were actually looking at moving to a new software system this year, but with all the new implementation changes, with the new Inspire changes, and the new HOTMA changes, and we're moving from a PIC system to a HIP system, we just thought it best that we do a little bit more exploring. So we anticipated putting requests out there for RFPs for new software systems. And we've looked at a few of them, but to make the move to a new software system right now with everything else that's changing would just be too difficult for staff and myself.
Okay.
Yeah, and some of the new software.
I just wondered if it was like something that was maybe going to come, or, okay.
Yeah, we're still anticipating in the future, but right now it would just be very difficult to make that transition smooth.
All right.
It's a great question.
I have a question. What are HIPSIS and IPSIS?
So,
Where's that?
and we're going to throw a lot of acronyms at you again. These
know.
things
I
we
wish
use
you would.
interchangeably, so I
been
apologize
around
in
for-
advance. So, HIP, and I don't know exactly what it stands for, but we have a PIC system, PIC is essentially what is uploaded, exported from our system and uploaded into the HUD system for every household. So every household has a form that's called 50058. That's the family report. That's all their financial information. And we can cover this more in depth later in the orientation briefing, right? Because it's the information we have for the family. Well, that information has to be imported into a HUD online database, okay? Our software system works with their software system is PIC. So our software system works with the PIC system to export that text file and import that information so that it rings current into the HIP. And that has a lot to do with how we receive our funding too, right? Because all of the family reports, all the information that we report into the PIC system is what is evaluated by HUD, our utilization, the size of our families, the households, all that information. And so they are moving into a new system, away from the system we're utilizing now. So we're working on making the correction. So PIC is just an acronym that I don't even know that it really stands for anything, to be honest with you. But it is just generally, it is a upload and export and import from our housing software system into HUD's software system.
Export, import, that sounds like what George Costanza did on Seinfeld. Nobody knew what it meant. If HUD is requiring this, why don't they pay for it?
It's part of our requirement. They just, it's like anything else, they just require you to have it completed. They don't give you, HUD doesn't give you dollars to upgrade your software system. They give you administrative dollars. And part of our administrative dollars every month covers some of our overhead costs. And so
I'd assume there's other programs that they could do this. So basically, it's just how they're getting the information to HUD, because they have to, right?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
think about it, there's so much information that they have to get to them. I'm sure there's probably other services, but this is just the one that the city probably chose. So it has nothing to do with HUD. It's just how we're getting them the information they need.
Correct. You could use a variety of different housing software systems to do it.
Yeah. So. all good.
HIP is Housing Information Portal.
Makes sense.
I figured it meant
And
something.
PIC is Public and Indian Housing Information Center. There you go. Again,
Okay.
acronyms.
Well, thank you. I just,
Public and Indian Housing Information Center.
okay, well, I try to keep up on these acronyms, and that's the reason I just try to keep up on them, so that's the reason I asked. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions about this? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve this.
I motion to approve the April financial minute report.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the April financial reports. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we'll go on to the utilization. How do we get 101%?
We're spending more money than we received. So requesting, so we're receiving, I believe it is 361,250, and we're spending 361,696. That was for this month. And that will change, I'm sure, as of tomorrow, because I'm positive that we have payments for the previous month that we will pay in this month, and that changes from week to week.
Okay,
Okay, well, now, in the March report, it said 101.1%. This kind of fluctuates on the number of vouchers that are out?
Yep. We lose some, we gain some. People that were paying more in rent are now paying less in rent, which means we're paying more. We issue new vouchers, so it's just
Constant.
balancing out. Yeah, it's constant.
So what's I don't know, maybe this has been on others, but I've never noticed it, and this is just a question, I'm not concerned with it, but the vouchers, it shows 0 and it shows 4. What's 0?
Those are efficiencies. So they're not one bedrooms, they're efficiency units.
Oh, okay, okay, got it.
That's a good question.
okay. Any other questions or corrections? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve the April utilization report.
I make a motion to approve the utilization report for April.
Second.
Great. Been moved and seconded to approve the April utilization report. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Now we'll go on to communications. Is this where you're doing your show, Kelly?
We'll be doing the show together. I'm our backup.
Okay.
So, yep. Go ahead, here. Yep, go right ahead, for wherever you're comfortable. I'm gonna be the sub. You want the clicker or no?
So this is just a copy of the slide that is presented today, all right? We have ordered some blue folders
you.
to put these in, so if you want to keep them, and then we can get them in the folders. That way, every time we have a slide or a presentation, then you'll have all that information, okay? But they didn't come in time today, so
Yeah, and just a little background on this. We've talked about this next 12 months, we're wanting to have an educational series with our Housing Commission so that you can be more aware on the programmatic side and the financial side of what happens in this housing program. And so Kelly and myself worked very diligently last week to aggregate a lot of data that we thought would be very useful when we talk about voucher issuance and utilization, because we do a utilization report every month. Those numbers don't necessarily reflect all the work that goes behind to get that information. And so we wanted to provide a forum where you had the opportunity to engage and ask questions as we present the information to you. So I will be a backup to Kelly and just to kind of allow her to lead this discussion. But feel free, write down any questions. We're here to better educate you on how this works.
Okay, so Kelly Holman. So what I want to present to you today is, so when we opened up our waiting list in September of 2022, and we took in 1,166 applications, okay? And where we have worked from the waiting list till now, okay? How many vouchers we have issued, how many didn't respond, just kind of step you through the process of what we've been doing for the last year and a half, okay? And so myself, Amy Hayes, and Mike Dodds, and then Malia, we have 3 housing coordinators, Malia, and then we have a part-time clerk, okay? So,
oh, Kelly, that little piece. Remember that little piece at the bottom? Yeah, I always forget. Oh, no, I think it's the bottom.
oh, there we go.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Okay, so the mission is to provide safe, sanitary housing conditions for families to manage resources effectively. So HCD is Housing Choice Voucher. That's used to be known as Section 8. HUD is renamed the Housing Choice Voucher. We still kind of refer to Section 8 because it's just, you know, we've done it for so many years. So if I kind of go back, I don't mean to. We have a few slides in here that says Section 8. So it's just an acronym once again. So the Davenport Housing Authority seeks to promote personal, economic, and social upwards mobility and to provide families with the opportunity to make the transition from subsidized to non-subsidized housing. Okay, so the purpose today is to understand voucher distribution and waiting list process, examine the voucher issuance and the utilization from January of 2023 till May of 2024. We're going to review variables that impact this disbursement for you. Okay, so the terminology, the voucher issuance and voucher utilization. So voucher issuance refers to new voucher applicants pulled from the waiting list and determined eligible for the voucher. Portability voucher, a voucher that is transferred from another housing authority and absorbed or billing by Davenport Housing Authority. The voucher utilization refers to status for a new or port voucher. Lease is the applicant has been approved for housing and signed a lease agreement. Expired, the time for the applicants to secure housing that has not exceeded 120 days. And open is the applicant is currently seeking housing or is waiting to sign a lease agreement. Okay. So through this year, year and a half, we have went through. First, we issued them a voucher, then they look for housing. The utilization part is they get used up, or the voucher expires, or we pulled from the waiting list and that voucher is still open and they're still looking for housing. Okay, they're looking for housing. The landlords will accept that program.
And if I could real quick, Kelly, add this. So we included those terminologies because sometimes that can be confusing if you're not doing that on a day-to-day basis, right? Voucher issuance impacts voucher utilization, but they, make no mistake, they are 2 different things. And so you'll hear us kind of explain that a little bit more throughout the remainder of the presentation, but they are distinctly different. And so I found it useful to just define when we say what a new voucher is, or when we say what a new port voucher is, this is what we're making reference to.
And also, once they get leased up, that is what's called the utilization, that you see those numbers in that report where the numbers kind of fluctuate with 100.1. That depends on the utilization of how many vouchers we have. either they come off, they coming onto the program or going off of the program. The new voucher is new applicants. So when we would open the waiting list, for 2 days in September of 2022, we took in 1,166 applicants. Okay. Then we closed the waiting list because of course, the large amount of applications that we received. Okay. We don't keep our waiting list open. We used to do that years ago. And at one point we had like 10,000 people on our waiting list because it was open every single day. So the waiting list just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we just didn't have the funding to go and help all those people. So it's better to do it like at a 2-day period, so that way you can utilize, we can actually serve these people that we have in the last year and a half, these 1,100 people, because now we're able to help them. If somebody applied like they did years ago and get on a waiting list, it was pretty much that there's no, they would never come up on the waiting list, right? I mean, we'd be lucky if they'd even still be up at the top of the waiting list today. So it was a really good idea to close the waiting list. That way we can serve our community. And then once we go through these applicants, then we can open the waiting list for another day or something and get applicants again and be able to serve them within the next year after we work through this waiting.
Kelly, do you have an idea when that waiting list might open up again?
Well, right now, we have about 400 people on our waiting list. And we're looking at possibly a year to a year and a half, because we want to get through all the 400 applicants before we open the waiting list again. So we want to make sure that we go through that whole entire waiting list.
I want to add to that. That's a pretty complex question. I don't put a date to that, to be honest with you, because when I have to make the decision of whether or not we open up the list, I have to look logistically how we go about opening up the list, how many spots we could have available. Do we open it up like what we did before and take in 1,200 applications and then have 464 people drop off, and the time and effort that it takes to gather that together? Are we going to select target populations? Are we going to only serve a select target group when we open up that wait list? Right now, we have a very healthy wait list. We pulled 302 people, and Kelly will get more into that when we go into the charts, and we'll discuss that a little bit later on. But right now, there's not a determined period of time that we're going to open it. Ideally, we'd like to get to the point where we're opening it once or twice a year, because we see that the need is there. But there are a lot of other variables that we'll talk about at the end of the presentation that play into that, when we can open the list and how we open it up.
So from September
166 applicants. There's 400 and some left.
Remaining on the waiting list.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got some numbers up here for you that we can that we're going to show you all the applications and all the numbers for it.
Gotcha.
Okay. So the preliminary steps. Different preferences, that's how we place them on the waiting list.
Yeah, and we put them in, but the software system is already programmed, and it shuffles them based off of that preference. So I just wanted to be clear that staff have no, we don't manually go in and do that. That's all calculated by the software system. Are displaced people, right? They're displaced people. Yeah, we're putting to the system, and then they shuffled into that. Is there a way for them to go back in and say, hey, I don't need this anymore? or hey, like, it's there, like, I mean, instead of like you guys constantly having to meet, you have 400 people waiting, how do you?
So we purged the wait list, and I think Kelly's gonna talk about that a little later.
I was trying to think like, how, that was in 22, a lot can change in 2 years.
Correct.
So how many people actually still need it?
Right, so, they can come in and do we always ask that, we take changes in writing. Okay, so, but if somebody wants to be removed from the waiting list, they can request to be removed.
Okay.
Most generally, what we see is they just don't respond to a letter.
Yeah, okay.
That's the common.
Yeah.
Or they just call and say, I'm not interested.
Okay.
Or just don't. Okay, so, the new voucher, methodology is, there's 3 phases of the waiting list process. So there's the selection, the eligibility determination, and then the voucher issuance. So that 3 phases is, we do, by selection, we, basically let, our office clerk know that we need to pull, 20 applications, okay? So she goes and pulls 20 applications, going from, number 1 all the way down, because they're selected in the system, okay? Then she sends, a letter out advising them to provide all their documents, that HUD requires them to provide, okay? Then we take a look at if they're eligible for the program, okay? And then if they're eligible for the program, they have provided all their documentation, then they proceed to the voucher issuance, okay? In the selection, the initial letter is sent to applicants requesting specific documents to determine the eligibility. Okay, that is where that eligibility determination comes in.
And I'll say here for the selection, we're pretty generous. Most housing authorities give you 2 weeks to turn in your documents. We give households 30 days because we realize it can be difficult to accumulate birth certificates and social security cards and all these things, and it can be confusing sometimes. So we send an initial letter requesting the documents within 30 days. Then we do a follow-up letter within 15 days. And generally after that, if we don't receive a response, that application is deemed inactive.
How do you, I imagine, and I don't know this for sure, but if somebody is, what's that term, couch surfing, moving from place to place, how does mail get to them? Are they required to, I know you can't
They're
go out.
required to update their application.
Okay.
All everyone is required to, if they have to have some type of address or PO box, because otherwise we have no way of contacting
Sure,
them.
no,
Okay, so yep, they're all required. Anytime there's a change, they come in, fill out an update form. Okay, they can get it online, turn it back in, and then we update their application.
okay.
Do you guys email as well? Or send a letter to see
We did not collect email address on the waitlist applications, but that's definitely something that we're going to consider because we want to provide fewer barriers as possible for people. And we realize that sometimes it can be difficult to get to City Hall and everybody generally has access to email. But at the time when we opened, I think I was here like 3 months when we opened the waitlist. We're looking at revising that application and maybe including more information that will make it easier. But as Kelly said, it is essentially their responsibility. But yes, I definitely think that there's a possibility that we could do that in the future to make it easier for people to access.
Yeah, but Julie does, if they request a document online, she does email it to them, if they request that. Okay.
Because I'm just thinking about the people who may couch surf or whatever.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they'll still go check the email at the library or
Right.
something.
And I think that's why we're gonna look at when we open the waiting list again, to revise how we're gonna do that and not as many, you know, because I think,
I will say, Kelly, real quick. So one thing we did try, Commissioner Roberts, was Assist to Connect, which was an extra added feature onto our software system. So we sent letters out giving people like registration codes and said, hey, this is how you can register to check your status on the wait list, to update your address. We had less than 10% of the 200 letters that we sent out for people to get enrolled. They were confused, they had questions, there was no technical support. So we did look at that as early on when we first did our purge to say, hey, we want to provide equal access to it, but it just wasn't useful for our population. Sorry, Kelly. I just wanted to add that in there before I forgot.
do you have any more questions regarding that? Okay, so once we determine, it depends on how many, for instance, out of the 20, say 10 responded and we've received all their information, okay? Then they go to us 3 housing coordinators that we review the documents, make sure that everything that they're required to provide that they did. And that it meets requirements of the program admission. Okay, and then the other 10 that didn't respond, then they would be inactive in the system. And then we would then file their application away because we had no response. Okay. So once the people that were their applications were approved, then they come to the orientation. We explain at the orientation, and I'm not sure how many of you have come to an orientation or not. But you know, if it's ever something that you want me to, you can either come to an orientation. I can show you one of our presentations that we do. I wouldn't go through the whole entire thing, you know, in depth because it takes about 2.5 hours to do an orientation. Okay. But I'd be more than happy to kind of just do the same thing we are, give you the little slideshow, show you what we do, show you what we show them, you know. But it steps through the whole process of what do I do once I get a voucher? How much is my payment standard? How many bedroom size do I have?
So, speaking of, each applicant has to go through, once they're issued a voucher, go through the orientation for
Everybody has to go through the orientation.
2.5 hours?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, because it explains the program.
Yeah.
Because it is a very complex program, okay? We give them all their booklets that they need, fair housing booklets, lead-based paint booklets.
How was the attention span on that? I mean, okay.
It's not bad.
I think more people are excited to get vouchers. I think the new ones, they're new.
For myself, I do all 3, but I do my HUD Bash, my FYI, my foster youth ones, and then my people off the waiting list. Okay, so just so make sure I don't forget to tell you this is only people from the waiting list. These numbers that I'm going to give you today are not HUD Bash numbers or FYI. They're separate programs. So these are just people from coming off the waiting list. Okay, just to make sure you know. Okay.
How often do you do those? Just
once a month.
once a month you do? Okay.
Yeah, sometimes twice, just depends, right? So then we give them all their booklets and everything. Then we have to sign HUD documents. Then I issue, show them what a voucher is, what an RTA is, how to start that process of going and looking.
What's an RTA? You're using acronym.
Request for tenancy approval.
Okay, you're using another acronym, so.
Okay, and we don't have to go into this, but if you'd like, I will. Once they get their voucher, they get a request for tenancy approval. Then they go find the landlord, they'll accept the program. They turn it into our office. Then we make sure that the unit works for the program. We give the inspection to the inspector. They go inspect the unit. Once the unit passes, then they can sign a lease, and then they go on to the program. So they have to find a unit within 120 days of that voucher.
I have a question. Are the inspectors from your department or are they from the public work?
Nope, not from Public Works. Yep,
Okay,
and they are required to have a rental license as well. So
sure.
it has been inspected by the city before we go and inspect it. They're required to have it.
Quick question then, if they should find someone who has the rental license, everything's okay on that, but they are not in the program for the vouchers for Section 8 and that, for the landlord, they have to go through other paperwork to get that done. Do you have an idea how long that takes for them to get cleared for it?
Okay, so I'm trying to understand your question. So what you're saying is that they're a new landlord with our program?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, they haven't cleared through the program yet, but they're willing to.
Well, now, the landlords, they have to have a rental license.
Yep.
Okay, and we accept new landlords, so there's not really a process that the new landlord has to do.
But they're hoping that people will accept the vouchers, right? If I go to a landlord, you guys are hoping that they'll accept those vouchers, but there's no approval that they have to go through besides the credentials, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so anybody can be a part of it if they approve someone's voucher.
I didn't know if they had, there's probably paperwork they have to fill out and everything else.
I mean, a W-9 form, okay?
We are working on developing a more comprehensive package, especially for new landlords that are not familiar with the program, because they are requesting so much more information. They want to understand how the payment standard and utility allowance, and just like many of you have a lot of questions, someone coming off the street who's never worked with the program is going to have questions. We have the landlord's guide to Section 8, but sometimes that just doesn't give as much specific information as they want. So right now, like Kelly and I met with a landlord last week. We sat with them and their partner. They're looking at buying several houses in the community and wanted to kind of know more about the program and their involvement and how to get started and what to expect. And so we just kind of walk when they want to meet. If they have a lot of questions and we can't get them answered by email, that's when I request a face-to-face and we can sit down and talk with them one-on-one. Yeah.
Will you rent me your house? And let's say they own a whole complex. Do they have to rent to everybody that comes to them with a voucher? They can pick and choose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so if they have a sixplex and 2 of the people have vouchers and the other 4 don't,
That's okay, okay.
But let's be clear, they can't overcharge them just because we're paying the 120%. That rent has to be comparable. Yeah, yeah.
I just wasn't sure, they say yes to someone, and then the next person comes to them with a voucher, and they're like, I'm not doing that today.
Yeah, I mean, there's some fair housing, there's some fair housing practices that have to be in place. And so we do advise landlords to be aware of landlord law and what fair housing and equal housing opportunities are, just because like familial status is a protected class. You can't say, well, how many kids are you gonna have? There's certain things that you as a landlord can't say to a tenant that's illegal, and some of them just don't know. Some landlords just don't know. And so I think Kelly and staff do a really good job of presenting what your rights are as a tenant, the questions that you should answer, and vice versa. So.
All right.
I guess you already answered it. Do you email them?
And then part of that, Commissioner Roberts, is because when we did the wait list in September 2022, we didn't request, I don't think we requested email addresses. Yeah, so we don't have them, but again, that is something we want to reduce barriers for people to have to get access to the wait list. So that's something that we will definitely look at. And I just want to point out, those 96 applicants were after we purged that list. Part of that was after. So we are really quite shocked that almost a third of the people that, after the list was purged, still didn't give us a response, even though they had updated their contact information. And so that's been part of the reason that we are looking at conducting a different process when we choose to open the wait list again, because even now our response rate is about 50-50. So it's really, and these are a very, what I would consider more of a clean list, like it's been purged, people have responded, have updated their information. And so we just don't want to have a large wait list and with people that don't need the service, right? Because we realize that there are people that are requesting, and if it's too large of a list and you've got too many people hanging on for too long a period of time, you're not really serving the community. For housing commission or for housing, the housing? Oh, no, we don't have anything open at this time. No worries.
And 17 in March, 13 in April, 22 in May, 24 in June. We had a huge orientation.
So yeah, there were months where we did not get a significant response back in that 30 days. And again, I want to kind of give you a better idea of how the timing works. So you're giving someone 30 days to respond, right? At that 30-day mark, you're still sending letters out that deny them or, from the program or make them inactive. But then the housing coordinator gets that same application that they've met the minimum requirements, and then they have to review it. So then that's another 2 weeks. So you're looking at about a 45-day turnaround from when you initially pull from the wait list. It takes a significant amount of time that we have to wait when people don't respond. That's what I want to get across with those numbers. And I think to Kelly's point, that's why they don't look so high, is because we're holding that voucher space for such a long period of time in hopes that that household will respond to our request for documentation to get them approved for a voucher.
My question is, I'm not saying that Kelly and staff don't work, but why does it take 2 weeks?
2 weeks.
Because they have a caseload of 240 plus renewals, and then they're having to do any special inspections, they're having to do orientations. Kelly has to do special programs, they have to do ports. So their regular work, plus we as a staff have to have a meeting about what we have to do. We have to be forecasting too.
Okay.
So yeah.
That's a fair answer. I'm not accusing anybody, I'm just trying to learn and.
Well, the thing is, it does take a process, because you want to allow them to give them enough time to be able to provide everything.
Yeah, she probably does. That's probably right. And it is the most efficient way. To Kelly's point, it is the most efficient. We can get more vouchers. Yep.
Because if we had to meet with 28 people, okay, between the
put that up there, that I found that significant, is that's what HUD looks at. That's what HUD cares about. How many vouchers have you issued? How many vouchers have leased up? Because we only get paid, let me be clear, we only get paid for vouchers that are leased up. We only get an administrative fee for vouchers that are leased. So all the work Kelly puts in to try to work and get somebody housed, if they never get housed, we get no money for that. She's done all that work for 3 or 4 months. We get nothing. So the goal is to get as many people housed, and that is an amazing number. And I say that on the record. I get that every time we do it. Kudos for Kelly and the staff, because I will tell you, other housing authorities are nowhere close to this number. Nowhere close. We have a really high success rate. So kudos to the staff and all the hard work that they've put in. All right, that's my 2 cents. Sorry. And housing commissioners, I just want to add, there was some questions earlier this year about people porting into Davenport, and are we serving our population? Are we serving more people outside our community? And clearly you see 63 households came outside the community, but we issued 206 vouchers for households in the community. So clearly, and this is factual, substantiated information.
So every month, we always have people that drop off for whatever reason. Some people over income, some people get married, move off, do whatever. Go into nursing homes, so you're always going to have, trying to get people vouchered into the program, and then you're always having people that exit out of the program. And that is where that 100.1% comes every single month. It's always different, always.
Yeah, there's a natural attrition to this program. We're trying to get to the science of it, and a lot of it is trying to balance what you're getting every month and what you're spending out every month and still putting people onto the program. And so these factors, it's a perfect mix of finding out what you're going to receive, how many people have open vouchers, because as Kelly stated, you've got 120% payment standard. You may have large family households and we're paying $1,800 a month for several families. You have to take that into account every month as well, especially with such a high success rate. And what we didn't go into in the essence of time is how many within 30 days, what does our success rate look like? How many households receive housing in 30 days? How many within 60 and 90? And all those things matter too when you're looking at securing funding for these households and issuing out more vouchers.
Go ahead, we,
No, you're good,
you can have a
you're
couple minutes, I'm fine.
No, I don't really have anything.
Okay.
Just for my own.
I think the bigger takeaway, housing commissioners, and Kelly, please feel free to chime in if you have something to add, is that it is not a very quick decision to issue vouchers, right? Obviously, as you see, you've got the wait list process. You've got to look at vouchers that are issued. You've got to look at having an orientation. How many people people turning in documents, how many what's the response like that's been, and then processing them. And then again, I still have staff, since we have a part-time inspector, still doing some inspections. So we are working diligently and effortlessly, really, to try to make this process efficient and be better able to serve our community while also being fiduciary responsible to our funding stream. And so that would be the bigger takeaway I would have for you. And I felt like it was important as we go into these educational series to be able to build that foundation for you to better understand when we're talking about voucher issuance and when we're reporting on voucher utilization.
Do we have time for any other questions? I'm asking. I mean, as a staff, yes. I don't think your job is, but I'm wondering if you refer clients, into educational things to get them off of HCV. Well, I mean, yeah, as a way to.
I mean, if you
we need another whole division to do that.
I understand. I know you're not social workers, but
right. So if I may answer that question, if there are other programs in the community that people are eligible for, and that information comes across our desk, then that information is passed on to our clients, like any other program would. I mean,
I know there are things like Humility of Mary, and I used to be on their board before I was on this board, where they help people get off of needing assistance, and they have a very good success rate doing that.
Well, my job is to get them on the program.
Right.
Is my job, right?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. I mean, that is our job, is to help people in the area. It's their job to work themselves off the program, but it's my job to help them get on their feet and do the best that we can as a housing authority to support as many people in this community as we can.
Okay, good. And I know another thing that you mentioned, helping people find housing. Do you keep a list in your office of landlords that are available to help people in case they don't know anybody or have contacts? Or?
Yes. We do hand out a listing of the landlords that have worked with our program, and we hand those out at the orientation.
Okay, good.
And as I mentioned a while back, we are working on putting a GIS map on our site. I'm working with someone from Public Works to, we're really in the really good, strong phase of getting it uploaded. where we can have security deposit, rent, utilities that are covered, and because most people have access to internet, can go on there and see properties live, right? So more accurate information than maybe handing out a worksheet would be. But that takes time, and that takes the technical, I have to have staff that have the technical skills to be able to maintain that. And so where I lack, I'm depending on others, and so we're kind of working
Who's your
together.
youngest one? You've got kids still.
Yeah.
No, I'm just teasing. I'm teasing when I say that.
Has a unit available.
Sure.
We share it amongst each other. I share it with my clients. If I know somebody that has a voucher open and they're looking for a 3-bedroom, call them right away.
Because I remember in the old days when we were down at Heritage, there used to be a binder in there people could look through.
That doesn't, people surf the internet more.
Oh, sure.
IowaHousingSearch.org, that a lot of landlords put their information on there, and it doesn't say except Section 8. So that's another really good tool for people.
Commissioners, any other questions? No? Okay, if anything comes up, please don't hesitate to email myself or Kelly. We'll be glad to answer it. This is something that Kelly's been doing this for 20 plus years. I've been doing this for 2. So we don't know if she doesn't know the answer, I will definitely try my best. But no, we appreciate your time, and I think that's all we have.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Dennis, do you have from the audience? Do you have any?
No, I was really interested to hear about you entertaining the idea of starting your list over more frequently instead of waiting 2 years for it to leak down. Yeah. Because it sounds like an awful lot of those names get pulled and the data is stale and it's just not very efficient to wade through all of that. Right. So doing something semi-annually or maybe 3 times a year and having a smaller pool of fresher information might make a lot of sense.
I think once you reopen that and add the email and the better communication, that, or even get a database where they can, where it's constantly updated. But
the struggle with that, Commissioner Stoller, is that some of our participants lack the ability. Again, we tried the Assist to Connect. We actually paid for it because we thought it would be more useful, and it became more of a hindrance. Like people didn't respond, or the people that didn't know how. And some of them thought they were getting a voucher, so they were submitting all these documents and didn't realize, hey, no. So we tried to restrict that. So we kind of fell back on that a little bit. Again, it's something that we're looking for in the future when we have more technical assistance for our participants that can work with them more one-to-one on that. And better software too.
And that's where that money will come into play.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Otherwise, I just glance Yolanda usually beats me to it on the next month, but looks like June 17th. Mm-hmm. 3rd Monday of June. Okay, if not, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn our meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.